Hey, hello, what's up, guys? It's me, Stephen Bones, and today I'm going to be sentencing announcer from Bfdi for all the bad things that he's done. For all his felonies. First off, he puts everyone on a balance beam across the water, which is okay for everyone except for Fiery, Ice Cube, Golf Ball, and Rocky, because Golf Ball and Rocky will both drown, and Fiery and Icy will both melt. So that's life in prison, since we don't do death sentences here. Then he sends various contestants out on the water on a boat, which Fiery and Icy would melt by even going near the water. And if Golf Ball and Rocky were to fall into the water, they will both drown again. So that's life in prison again. Then he sends multiple people to the TLC. Nobody deserves that at this point because the announcer is even worse than those people. So that's life in prison once again. Oh, he's even worse than 4. Then he sends his contestants across a bridge, and when people fall off, it's revealed by Penn that they're just black bendy straws attached to tape. Meaning there's another life sentence for him. Life in prison. And then when people fall into the water, again, Golf Ball and Rocky will both drown. The same with Fiery and Icy with melting. So that's life in prison once again. Wow, I might as well just do life in prison for the rest of the video. That'll make things way easier. Then he murders Bubble, which is probably on accident, so you know what? I'm gonna let this slide since it was on accident. Then, earlier on in an episode, he tells Needle to slap Coiny. Which, should I charge or should I not charge? Because on one hand, if the announcer told Needle to jump off a bridge, would Needle do that? But on the other hand, the announcer is the host. So you know what? Life in prison for the announcer. And then he sends people on springs whenever they're on the wrong team, or whenever they have to claim their prize. So you know what? He's getting life in prison for that as well. Wow. Might as well just give him life in prison for everything. I'm pretty sure if I were to do 4 would have better sentences than this guy. Then he dumps his marble collection into hydrochloric acid, just so contestants will get points. And some contestants, well, not the contestants, but a whole bunch of recommended characters were so desperate for points that they jumped into the acid. However, this isn't the announcer's fault because they could have just not jumped in there. They're not even contestants. So you know what? I'm going to let the announcer slide on this one because they're not even contestants. So the recommended characters aren't even contestants. So they weren't going to earn any bonus points anyway. Before I continue, any felonies that were committed on accident will not count. So I'm just going to skip those. And then he floats people inside of a barf bag, which was just colored water at first. But Rocky barfed into it, so it isn't really the announcer's fault. But either way, the announcer could have just taken them out of the water instead of just keeping them in there. So that's life in prison once again. And it's revealed by Tennis Ball in that episode that the announcer has only been feeding them bread, which is also starvation. So life in prison once again. Wow, I might as well just give him life in prison for every felony he commits. Because that will really make things way easier for this guy. Well, actually easier for me, not for the announcer. He's gonna be in prison for the rest of his life. And he's always getting into budget cuts, which isn't really a felony. So his only sentence right here is good luck with getting some more money for the budget. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention this, but the marble collection he put in the acid were alive because they had faces. So life in prison for that, and life in prison for slicing a pie who was alive. And also life in prison for encouraging the contestants to beat up bowling pins and bowling balls with faces. And he even throws knives at the contestants for when they kick at steak prizes. That's life in prison once again. You know what? Should we even continue? Because it seems like he's just gonna get life in prison. Then he imprisons some recommended characters that signed up for Bfdi. We're not going to include David because he wasn't in prison, but we are going to include when he was imprisoned in the actual show. So life in prison for each recommended character who didn't join. Then he traps people in space just for a contest. So you know what? Life in prison again. The spaceship running on Spongy wasn't really the announcer's fault. It was just a coincidence that it ran on big squishy yellow contestants. So you know what? We're just gonna move on to the ones that count. Then he cuts up Cheese Orb into pieces. Life in prison again. Then he steals Fiery's money, making this his first non-life in prison charge. Forget it. He's just getting life in prison at this point. He's already gotten life in prison too many times. Why stop now? And then we have the second worst thing he has done. He could have deleted the bugs this whole time instead of causing this whole problem. That's life in prison for him. Then he burns a David and inflates a David's head. Really, like, way too high. So that's life in prison again. Then he murders all three of the finalists. Life in prison for this guy. Once again. Then he steals Dream Island from Fiery and gives it to Leafy, so she can steal it too. So that's... You know what? Screw it. Just life in prison, okay? Yep. So, announcer basically just gets life in prison. And nothing is gonna change that. Announcer. Lock him up. Anyway, subscribe.